Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The gentle hum of the hospital was a constant, a reassuring baseline to the chaotic symphony of human drama that played out within the walls of General Hospital. In a sun-drenched room on the maternity ward, that drama had recently reached a crescendo of joy. Cody Bell, his usually mischievous face softened with a reverence he hadn't known he possessed, looked down at the tiny, swaddled form in his arms. His son. The word echoed in his soul, a profound and terrifying melody. Beside him, propped up on pillows and glowing with a mixture of exhaustion and incandescent happiness, was Sasha Gilmore. Her smile was a fragile, beautiful thing, a testament to the peace they had fought so hard to secure. "He has your nose," Sasha whispered, her voice hoarse but filled with wonder. "Poor kid," Cody quipped, the familiar humor a comfortable shield for the tidal wave of emotion. But his eyes, locked on the baby's face, betrayed the depth of his feeling. This was it. The fresh start. The redemption he never thought he'd earn. The shadows of his past, the cons, the lies, the aimless drifting, seemed to recede in the pure, uncomplicated light of this new life. He was a father. He would be better. He had to be better. The door to the room clicked open, and Max Scorpio stepped in, his expression a blend of official duty and grandfatherly affection. As the commissioner of the Port Charles Police Department, his presence often heralded trouble, but today, his eyes crinkled at the corners as he looked at the new family. "Don't worry, I'm not here on official business," Max said, correctly reading the flicker of anxiety in Cody's eyes. "Just wanted to see how everyone is doing and deliver this in person." He held up a sealed, official-looking envelope. The finalized adoption paperwork. "Everything is in order. He's yours, Cody. Legally, and in every way that matters." Cody carefully transferred the baby back into Sasha's waiting arms, his fingers brushing against hers in a silent communication of shared joy and relief. He took the envelope, its weight feeling monumental. "Thank you, Mac. For everything." "It's my pleasure, son," Mac said, his voice thick with emotion. He'd seen Cody at his worst and was fiercely proud of the man he was becoming. "You've got this. Both of you." The moment was pristine, a perfect bubble of happiness suspended in time. And like all such bubbles, it was destined to be popped. As Mac turned to leave, his phone buzzed insistently. He frowned, glancing at the screen. "It's the station. I have to take this." He stepped out into the hallway, his voice a low, professional murmur. Cody's attention returned to Sasha and the baby, the interruption forgotten. He leaned down, kissing Sasha's forehead. "We're really a family," he murmured. Sasha's smile was her answer, but it faltered slightly as Mac re-entered the room. His demeanor had shifted. The softness was gone, replaced by the stern, unyielding posture of a lawman. His face was pale, his jaw tight. "Cody," Mac's voice was low, gravelly. "We need to talk. Now. Outside." The shift in atmosphere was as sudden and chilling as a winter draft. Sasha's grip on the baby tightened instinctively. "Mac? What is it? What's wrong?" "It's police business, Sasha," Mac said, his eyes not leaving Cody's. The message was clear, this was for Cody alone. Cody's heart, which had been soaring moments before, plummeted into a cold, dark pit. The ghost of every bad decision, every cut corner, every face he'd conned, flashed before his eyes. Had someone from his past resurfaced? Was there a warrant? An old charge he thought was buried? "It's okay, Sasha," Cody said, forcing a calm he didn't feel. He squeezed her hand, a gesture meant to be reassuring but which felt more like a desperate anchor. "I'll be right back." He followed Mac into the sterile, bright hallway, the door swinging shut behind them, muting the sanctuary of the hospital room. The corridor seemed to stretch and warp, a tunnel leading to an unknown doom. "Mac, you're scaring me," Cody said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on? Is it about my record? Because I thought It's not about your record, Cody, Mac interrupted, his tone hollow. He looked older, the weight of whatever he was carrying visibly bowing his shoulders. He ran a hand over his face. There's been a development. A confession. A confession? To what? Mac took a deep, shaky breath, as if steeling himself. We have Ronnie S. O'Hara in custody. He was picked up last night on a drunk and disorderly, but once he was in the system, he started talking. He demanded a deal, said he had information on a cold case. Mac's eyes, full of a profound and terrible pity, finally met Cody's. My cold case. The kidnapping of my son, Noah. Cody blinked, confused. The name Ronnie meant nothing to him, and the tragedy of Noah's kidnapping was a sad, distant piece of Port Charles history, a wound that had long since scarred over for the Scorpio family. Okay. I don't understand. What does that have to do with me? Mac's composure cracked. A single, ragged breath escaped him. Everything, Cody. It has everything to do with you. Ronnie, he confessed to being the one who took Noah from the park that day. The world tilted. Cody's mind raced, trying to find the connection, the thread that tied this sordid confession to his own life. But Noah died. They never found him. It was a tragedy. I'm sorry, Mac, I truly am, but why are you telling me this here? Now? Because he didn't just confess to the kidnapping, Mac said, his voice dropping to a tortured whisper. He confessed to what he did after. He paused, the silence in the hallway becoming a physical pressure. He panicked. The baby wouldn't stop crying. He was a small-time crook, not a mastermind. He couldn't take care of an infant. So he abandoned him. Cody's blood ran cold. A terrible, dawning horror began to uncoil in the deepest recesses of his gut. Abandoned him where? Mac's eyes were pools of anguish. At a remote farm in Pennsylvania. He left him on the doorstep of a place known for taking in strays, both animal and human. A place run by a man named Mike. The name hit Cody like a physical blow. Mike. His father. The man who had raised him with a rough, distant kindness, surrounded by horses and hardship. The man who had never seemed to fully want him. The farm. The loneliness. The sense of never quite belonging. It all rushed back, a flood of fragmented memories and long-buried insecurities. No, Cody breathed, the word a denial, a plea. He shook his head, backing away from Mac as if from a physical threat. No. That's not possible. That's a coincidence. My father's name was Mike, but that's just a common name. There are 1,000 Mikes. 1,000 farms. Ronnie described the farm, Mac pressed on, his voice relentless in its agony. The main house, the red barn, the crooked fence post by the gate. He described the man who came out, a big man with a limp and a weary expression. He watched from the trees as Mike found the basket. He watched him take the baby inside. Each detail was another nail in the coffin of Cody's identity. The red barn. The crooked fence post. His father's limp, a souvenir from a long-ago rodeo accident. These were not things a random criminal could know. These were the intimate, mundane details of his childhood. He identified you from a photo, Cody, Mac said, his voice breaking. He saw your picture in the file, your arrest record from when you first came to town. He pointed to you and said, "That's the kid. That's the baby I left on Mike Bell's doorstep." He said he'd been carrying the guilt for decades, and he wanted it off his chest before he leaves Port Charles for good. The truth, monstrous and absolute, crashed down upon Cody. It wasn't a suggestion or a theory, it was a confession, corroborated by the one man who knew the whole, sordid story. The air left his lungs in a violent whoosh. He staggered, bracing himself against the cold, white wall of the hospital corridor. The world swam, the cheerful murals and bright lights blurring into a nauseating swirl. My name is Cody Bell. The thought was a desperate anchor. I am Cody Bell, son of Mike Bell. Con man. Gambler. Father. But the anchor's chain had snapped. He was adrift in a sea of lies. He wasn't Cody Bell. He was Noah Scorpio. Mac's son. The son he'd mourned for over 30 years. The brother of Robert Scorpio, of Felicia Jones. The uncle to Jocelyn Jacks, to Georgie Spinelli. He was a Scorpio. A pillar of one of Port Charles's most respected families. And the man standing before him, the man he had come to respect and see as a father figure, was not just Mac Scorpio, the kindly police commissioner. He was his father. His real father. The two men stood frozen in the hallway, a chasm of 30 lost years stretching between them. The joy of just minutes ago, the baby, the adoption papers, the promise of a future, now felt like a cruel, ironic joke. Cody's entire sense of self, a fragile construct he had only recently begun to believe in, was obliterated in an instant. All this time, Cody's voice was a raw, broken thing. All this time, I was here. In this city. With you. And I never knew. You never knew. Mac's eyes filled with tears that he refused to shed. The professional cop was gone, leaving only a shattered father. We looked for you, Noah. We never stopped. We followed every lead, every dead end. We thought you were dead. We had to believe it, to survive the not knowing. Noah. The name was a foreign object, a label that didn't fit. He wasn't Noah. He was Cody. But who was Cody? A name given to a foundling by a man who wasn't his father. An identity built on a foundation of sand. His mind raced, a frantic montage of his life. The feeling of not belonging on the farm. His father Mike's occasional, uncharacteristic moments of tenderness, always followed by a deeper withdrawal. Had Mike known? Had he suspected the child he'd taken in was the subject of a massive, national search? Or had he simply been a hard man, incapable of love, and Cody's feelings of alienation were just that? Then, the connections to Port Charles slammed into him with the force of a freight train. His instant, almost primal connection to Felicia. Her unwavering kindness to him, a stranger. His complicated, rivalry-turned-respect relationship with Robert Scorpio. The way Mac had always given him a chance, had seen something in him worth saving. Had it been mere coincidence? Or was it the invisible, unbreakable thread of blood calling to blood? He thought of the baby, his son, sleeping peacefully in the room behind him. He had been so overwhelmed with the desire to give him a name, a legacy, a clear and honest history. And all the while, his own history was a poisoned well. The legacy he was actually passing on was one of kidnapping, abandonment, and a fundamental, existential lie. The baby, Cody gasped, his eyes wild with panic. What does this mean for the baby? For the adoption? Mac, reasserting a sliver of his professional composure, shook his head. Legally? Nothing. The adoption is final. You are his father. That hasn't changed. He paused, the unspoken words hanging in the air. But everything else has. Cody's gaze shifted from Mac's devastated face to the closed door of Sasha's room. Inside was his future, his happiness, his reason for being. Outside, in this harshly lit hallway, was the ruins of his past. How could he bring this truth into that room? How could he lay this monstrous secret at the feet of the woman he loved, a woman who had already endured more trauma and loss than anyone should? Sasha's recovery from her ordeal with Dr. Montague was still ongoing. Her mental health was fragile. The birth of their son was supposed to be her salvation, their shared redemption. This news, that the father of her child was a living, breathing ghost, the product of a decades-old crime, could shatter her completely. It could destroy the very family he was trying to build. He saw it all unfold in a terrifying premonition, the pitying looks, the whispered conversations, the media frenzy. Kidnapped Scorpio heir returns. Their son wouldn't just be Cody Bell's boy, he'd be the grandson of a kidnapping victim, the grand finale of a sordid tale. Their private joy would become a public spectacle, a footnote in a tragic story. The weight of it was crushing him. He couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. Cody? Mac's voice was gentle, tentative. No, don't, Cody choked out, holding up a hand. Please, Mac. Don't call me that. I can't. I need air. He turned and stumbled down the hallway, away from Mac, away from Sasha, away from the baby. He was a man fleeing the scene of a crime, but the crime was his own existence. He burst through the hospital's main doors, the bright Port Charles sunlight feeling accusatory and false. He walked aimlessly, the city he had come to see as home now feeling like an alien landscape. Every corner held a new, painful resonance. There was the park where, according to Ronnie's confession, his life had been stolen. There was the police station where his own father had worked for years, unknowingly just floors above the file that contained the truth about his missing son. There was the Metro Court, where he'd shared drinks with Robert, his brother, their banter now taking on a horrifying new subtext. He found himself at the waterfront, staring out at the churning, gray water. Who was he? The question was a scream in his mind. Was he Cody Bell, the reformed con man who had finally found love and family? Or was he Noah Scorpio, the tragic victim, the lost boy found? He felt like neither. He was a ghost caught between two lives, neither of them fully real. Back in the hospital, Mac Scorpio remained rooted to the spot, the echo of Ronnie's confession ringing in his ears. The joy of his grandson's birth was now inextricably intertwined with the resurrection of his deepest grief. He had his son back. But the son was a 30-something man, a stranger shaped by a life Mac had no part in, and he was clearly drowning in the same tidal wave of shock and confusion. Mac's phone buzzed again. It was the station. Ronnie was being processed, his deal being formalized. He was leaving Port Charles, all right, on his way to a state prison, his terrible secret finally exchanged for a reduced sentence. The chapter was closed for the justice system. For the Scorpio family, it was being ripped open with brutal, unprecedented force. Meanwhile, in her quiet room, Sasha held her son, a creeping unease settling in her chest. Cody had been gone too long. His face when he left, it was a mask of pure terror. She'd seen Cody scared before, but never like that. It was the look of a man who had seen his own ghost. She tried to dismiss it, to chalk it up to new father jitters and the stress of the adoption, but her instincts, honed by survival, told her it was something more. Something far, far worse. The perfect, happy ending they had fought for and won had lasted less than an hour. Now, a shadow had fallen over it, a shadow cast by a desperate criminal's final confession. The truth was out, a dormant virus unleashed into the ecosystem of their lives. And as Cody stared into the abyss of his own identity, one terrifying question remained: could their hard-won love survive the terrible secret that Ronnie had revealed, or would the weight of a stolen past crush their future before it even had a chance to begin? The foundation of their new family had been cracked, and the aftershocks were only just beginning. The morning sunlight filtered through the windows of General Hospital, casting long streaks across the polished floors. The air was tense, almost heavy, as if the walls themselves could sense that something life-altering was about to unfold. Ronnie Domestico, visibly shaken and exhausted, stood near the nurse's station, clutching a manila folder to his chest like it was a lifeline. His eyes darted nervously, scanning the hallway for anyone who might overhear him. He had been carrying a burden for far too long, one that could destroy lives, shatter alliances, and forever alter the course of Port Charles. He muttered under his breath, "It's now or never," before taking a deep breath and walking toward Anna Devane's office. Anna looked up from her desk as Ronnie entered. Her sharp eyes immediately noticed the sweat glistening on his forehead and the tremble in his hands. "Ronnie," she said cautiously, "you look like you've seen a ghost." Ronnie gave a hollow laugh, his voice cracking as he replied, "I wish it was just a ghost, Commissioner. What I've got, it's worse than that." He dropped the folder on her desk, the sound echoing through the quiet room. Anna frowned, flipping it open. Inside were photographs, old case files, and a few handwritten notes that made her heart stop. "Where did you get this?" she demanded. Ronnie avoided her gaze, his voice low. I've had it for years. I was supposed to destroy it, but I couldn't. I thought I was protecting people, but I was wrong. Before Anna could press further, Dante Falconeri walked in, catching the tail end of Ronnie's confession. "What's going on here?" he asked, eyes narrowing. Ronnie turned toward him, guilt etched in every line of his face. "Dante," he began softly, "you deserve to know the truth. You and your family have been living a lie because of me." Dante's brows furrowed. "What are you talking about, Ronnie? What lie?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Ronnie finally exhaled and said, "The night of that warehouse bust, the one that changed everything, it wasn't what you thought. Someone you trusted set you up, and I helped cover it up." Anna's jaw tightened as she realized the gravity of what was unfolding. "You'd better start talking, Domestico. Now." Ronnie's voice shook as he began his confession. "It started years ago when I was working undercover. I stumbled onto something involving Sonny Corinthos, something big. But it wasn't just about Sonny. There were other names in those files, powerful people who had their hands dirty. I was ordered to bury the evidence, to make it disappear. At first, I told myself it was to protect the investigation. But then, I realized I was protecting the wrong people." Dante's expression hardened. "You're saying you covered up a crime?" Ronnie nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "Not just one. Several. And one of those crimes cost an innocent person their life." Anna leaned forward, her voice calm but sharp. "Whose life, Ronnie?" The room fell into silence. Ronnie swallowed hard before whispering, "Claudia Zacchara." Dante's eyes widened, his fists clenching. "You're telling me you know what really happened to Claudia?" Ronnie nodded. "I knew all along. I found out that it wasn't just Michael who struck her. There was someone else there that night, someone who finished what Michael started. I covered it up because I was told to. If the truth had come out back then, it would have torn the entire town apart." Anna's tone grew cold. "Who gave you that order?" Ronnie hesitated before answering. "It came from someone higher up in the department, someone working with the Zaccharas. They said if I didn't comply, I'd lose everything. So I did what they asked. I changed reports, buried files, and made sure the case went cold." Dante's anger boiled over. "And you just sat on this for years? You let my family carry the guilt while you hid behind a badge?" Ronnie stepped closer, desperate to make him understand. "You think I wanted that? You think it didn't kill me every day? I thought I was keeping everyone safe, but I was just keeping a secret that's been poisoning this town." Outside the office, word was spreading fast. Olivia overheard fragments of the conversation and rushed in. "Dante, what's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dante turned to her, his face a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Ronnie just admitted he's been covering up the truth about Claudia's death. He knew the whole time." Olivia gasped, covering her mouth. "My God, all those years, all that pain." Ronnie's shoulders sagged under the weight of their judgment. "I didn't come here to make excuses," he said quietly. "I came to make it right before I leave Port Charles." Anna crossed her arms, skeptical. "Leave? You think you can just dump this bomb on us and walk away?" Ronnie looked her in the eye. "I'm not running. I'm turning myself in. I've written everything down, names, dates, evidence. It's all in that folder. You'll find proof that I wasn't the only one involved." Dante's voice softened slightly, curiosity overcoming his anger. "Who else, Ronnie? Who else was part of this?" Ronnie hesitated before uttering a name that sent shockwaves through the room. "John Durant." Olivia's face went pale. "Carly's father? He's been dead for years." Ronnie nodded. "Yeah, but before he died, he had his hands in everything: corruption, blackmail, illegal deals. He was the one who convinced me to bury the evidence against Sonny. Said it would protect the department, protect the families. I believed him. I was an idiot. Anna rubbed her temples, processing the implications. This changes everything. We'll need to reopen multiple cases. Meanwhile, Carly arrived at the hospital after hearing her father's name mentioned. What's this about my dad? She demanded. Dante turned toward her, struggling to find the right words. Ronnie just dropped a bombshell, Carly. He claims John Durant was behind a major cover-up, including Claudia's death. Carly's voice trembled with rage. That's a lie! My father wasn't perfect, but he wasn't a criminal. Ronnie met her eyes, remorseful. I wish I could tell you that, Carly, but I have the evidence. Your father used me to protect Sonny and to keep the truth buried. Tears filled Carly's eyes as she whispered, You're destroying everything. Why now? Ronnie sighed. Because I can't live with it anymore. I've been carrying this secret for too long. I need to face what I've done. Dante glared at him. You think confessing makes it better? You ruined lives, Ronnie. You ruined mine. Ronnie nodded slowly. I know. And I'll pay for it. But at least the truth will finally come out. Later that evening, Sonny Corinthos arrived after receiving a call from Anna. His expression was cold, unreadable. So, Ronnie, Sonny said quietly, you've decided to tell everyone my secrets? Ronnie stood tall. Not just yours, Sonny. Everyone's. This town deserves the truth. Sonny chuckled darkly. Truth doesn't set people free in Port Charles, it just destroys them. Anna stepped between them. That's enough. This isn't about revenge, it's about justice. Sonny smirked. Justice? You think justice exists here, Anna? Everyone in this town has blood on their hands, including you. As the tension thickened, Jason Morgan entered, his calm but intimidating presence silencing the room. What's going on? He asked. Dante answered, Ronnie's confessing to covering up multiple crimes, including Claudia's death. Says he did it under orders. Jason turned his gaze to Ronnie. You should have stayed quiet. You're not helping anyone. Ronnie shook his head. Maybe not. But someone has to stop the cycle. Jason's voice dropped. You have no idea what you've started. Anna signaled to the officers outside. Take him into custody. Ronnie didn't resist. He held his hands out, his voice trembling as he said, Tell everyone I'm sorry. Especially you, Dante. As the handcuffs clicked, Dante's expression softened ever so slightly. You should have trusted me back then, Ronnie. Maybe things would have been different. Ronnie gave a faint smile. Maybe they still can be. As he was led out of the hospital, the weight of years of deception finally lifted from his shoulders. Reporters were already gathered outside, the story spreading like wildfire. Ronnie Dimestico confesses to years of corruption inside the Port Charles Police Department, one shouted. Ronnie paused on the steps, taking one last look at the town he had both loved and betrayed. Goodbye, Port Charles, he whispered. Back inside, Anna turned to Dante. We'll need to reopen the Claudia Zacchara case immediately. This could shake up the entire department. Dante nodded, but his expression was distant. Yeah. And it's going to drag a lot of ghosts back with it. Olivia placed a hand on his shoulder. At least now we know the truth. Dante sighed. Yeah, but sometimes the truth hurts more than the lies. Later that night, Carly stood alone on the pier, staring at the water. The revelation about her father haunted her. Jason approached quietly. You okay? He asked. Carly shook her head. No. My father, Sonny, Ronnie, they all lied to protect each other. And for what? Power? Loyalty? Jason looked out over the water. That's Port Charles. Secrets don't stay buried forever. Carly's voice broke. I just wish they had this time. As the wind picked up and the lights of the city shimmered across the water, Ronnie sat in the back of a police cruiser, watching the skyline fade behind him. He knew his life in Port Charles was over, but maybe, just maybe, his confession would finally bring some peace to those he hurt. Anna's words echoed in his mind, "The truth always finds a way out." And as the cruiser drove off into the night, Ronnie closed his eyes and whispered, "Then let it."